Welcome back. You're still watching VOP this morning. And now to our first topic. The Nigerian Labour Congress (NLC) and the Trade Union Congress (TUC) on Tuesday agreed to withdraw their services nationwide from Tuesday, October 3, in what has been described as an indefinite total strike. The two labor centers directed their affiliates to mobilize for protests from October 3. Organized labor took the decision after an NLC-TUC joint National Executive Council meeting in Abuja on Tuesday, September 26. Comrade Joe Ajero, NLC president, said the government has substantially failed to meet its demands after the removal of fuel subsidy. And now joining us virtually to discuss this today is Nick Agule, who is a public affairs analyst, and also we also have Chukuma Okoro, who is also a public affairs analyst as well. So Nick Agule, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And good morning to our viewers.
Yes, welcome to VOP this morning. So now, only last week the NLC and the TUC were not on the same page. And now it seems like they have resolved all their issues, to go the same way. And so what are your thoughts about this? Because, just make sense of it to us.
Thank you very much. My thought about this is that I am in full support of the labor unions to demand for their rights. And if strike action becomes the tool that they need to force the arms of government to respond to their demands, so be it. In the UK, strikes are going on. In fact, for the first time in the history of the National Health Service in the UK, the NHS, both junior doctors and senior doctors, that's the consultants, went on strike, I think last week. And that brought almost to a total halt in terms of healthcare services in the country. So this is the situation in Nigeria where the government has not delivered on a single promise that they made to the labor unions since these twin economic policies of fuel subsidy removal and exchange rate unification has brought untold hardships on everybody. And there is no commensurate increase in wages. Neither does government have anything on the ground to help alleviate the sufferings that workers are being put through. I think if the government from May to we're getting into October have not listened or done anything, the unions should push forward their demands, even if it is with a strike action.
All right then. So, good morning, Chukwuma Okoro. Good to have you on the show. Now, quickly to you now. This every time NLC or TUC had called for a strike, that is when government meets with them and they have a conversation. Now they came out, I mean, in previous times, they've come out to say that, look, that government, they've been meeting with empty chairs. Government has not met with them. And the only time they call them, the only time the Minister of Labour, Simon Lalong, responds to them is usually on the eve of a strike. And then the government tells them, give us more time, give us more time. Now, do you think this will be any different? The 3rd of October, will it be any different? And please, why will NLC or TUC wait up until October before embarking on an indefinite strike when the deadline for the warning strike ended a while back?
Good morning, Moses. Good morning, Nick. I'm happy to be here once again. I think what the government does is to always delay in negotiations. It's their own strategy. It's their own strategy, and they always use it to break the ranks of the labor unions. By the time they give you a day or two before the strike, they call you back, they call you into a negotiation table. They are able to put all sorts of promises before you and ask you, okay, give us more time. Give us more time to take care of all these things. Come back, let's talk about all these things. And Labour, being an organized union, they are always disposed to talking. They're always disposed to talking. Negotiation, which is a very good thing to do, to arrive at, to solve problems. But if you ask me again, I think this strike is a little too late. I said it on this TV before. I said it on national TV here before. If we are going on strike because of fuel subsidy removal, we shouldn't have waited up until this moment to go on strike. The day after the government removed the fuel subsidy, without any measure in place to alleviate the adverse effects of its removal, that is when Labour should have unleashed itself on the government and bring it to its knees. It's a little too late now. People are beginning to see reasons why the subsidy was removed. From whatever they got from the subsidy removal, they have been able to give to governments at the state and the local government level. And all those people are putting pressure on the NLC. Now, okay, why don't you wait a little more time? Why don't you give a little more time for us to see what this government can do? And before you know it, 6 months is gone. 6 months is gone and there's nothing at hand. The people are suffering. The bosses are not there. The 5 billion naira that was given to states, 2 billion naira released, the other 3 billion, nobody is talking about it again. And I also asked the question, why are you giving us rice in place of fuel? How do you expect us to convert rice and grains to fuel? The issue is fuel subsidy. So why are you giving us rice? NLC has not talked about refineries, either to build new ones or to revamp the existing ones. Nobody is talking about refinery. We are just talking about, NLC is talking about increasing salaries in an inflationary period so that more money will chase few goods and cause hyperinflation. That is the situation we have found ourselves. So if the NLC is able to hold out on this, I'm afraid they might not be able, because today is 27th. We have 3rd of October. You have 6 days window. The government is going to bring all sort of pressure under the table. They use under the table. They use molestation, harassment, subtle moves to ensure that they break the ranks of the labor union. If Nigerians are able to support the labor to go on this strike and allow it to expand for a very long time, I'm very sure the government will start retracing its steps.
All right, then. Now
it's already grappling with a lot of issues now. Okay. So if you add this to it, the government is sure to do something about it, because it's no longer funny.
All right,
it's no longer funny. The hardship is very hard.
Of course, it's not. It's not funny. Oh well. Now let's take a listen to what transpired at the meeting yesterday when TUC and Labour, met to talk about the indefinite strike, the upcoming indefinite strike. Let's take a listen to this one.
So, in the spirit of the Independence Day celebration, and to demonstrate our resolve for a truly independent Nigeria, to take our destiny in our own hands and rescue our nation. 2, to embark on an indefinite and total shutdown of the nation beginning on 0 hour, Tuesday, the 3rd day of October 2023. 3, to direct all workers in Nigeria to withdraw their services from their respective workplaces commencing from the 3rd of October 2023. 4, to direct all affiliates and state councils to immediately start mobilizing accordingly for action to organize street protests and rally until government responds positively to our demands. 5, to enjoin all patriotic Nigerians to join hands across the nation to assist this government put the people back at the center of its policies and programs. Signed.
Yeah.
things were the things that he reeled out there.
Yeah. So, Nick, what do you have to say about this? I mean, of course, in time past, how many times now, NLC has come out to say they were embarking on a strike and all of that, and nothing, they never saw it through, basically. But now that the Trade Union Congress, TUC, is joining in this strike, do you think it would make it more laudable in that the government would most likely honor, their demands, and grant them the request and everything else? So what do you think about it? Do you think that Labour can now stand with the TUC and now fight as one?
Yes, from that press conference, you can see that the two leaders of the main labor movements in Nigeria seem to have come together, and they are ready to go hand in hand this time. But let's not forget that a strike action will add to the pains and misery that Nigerians are going through today. So the federal government and the subnational government have to do all that it takes to avoid this strike action, because this strike action is not going to do anybody any good. As the citizens suffer, so the government suffer. Because if the economy is shut down, government depends on revenue that will come from economic activities, and that revenue will also not come. So government itself is going to suffer. Now, what can the government do to assuage the feelings of the labor unions? There are quick, low-hanging fruit. There are medium-term measures and there are long-term measures. As the labor union demanded in their press conferences yesterday, government can think about relaxing taxation, because once you relax taxation, number one, employees will have more money in their pockets. Businesses, we have the room to be able to reduce prices since they are not going to pay taxes and things like that. But let us ask ourselves, what is causing this misery? The first thing that is causing this misery is fuel subsidy. The president, without thinking, without consulting anybody, without waiting to get into the office to check the data for himself and ask the questions to the right people at his inauguration speech, said subsidy is gone. And immediately he said that on the 29th of May, on the 30th of May, the NNPC, the sole importer, decided to hike the price of petrol of stock that they already had in their tanks from about 180, 190 to 537 naira. Okay, so now, what can government do about that, which they are not doing? As we speak today, you don't need a license to import a vehicle that uses that petrol. Anybody can go and import a vehicle, whether for your personal use or for business or for commercial use, or you want to come and sell it, trade with it. The only thing that is needed is that when you bring that vehicle to the port, you pay your appropriate import duties and clear your vehicle and start using it. Why is the government up till now insisting that before you bring petrol that vehicle use, you must collect a license? By now, President Tinubu should have opened the gateway and said, look, if you don't need a license to import a vehicle, you don't need a license to import petrol. Go anywhere in the world. If you find petrol, bring it in, and we will check the quality of that petrol at the port. And once the quality is okay, come and sell that petrol at a price that will give you profit. And as we speak today, it's almost 5 months into office. People would have been landing this petrol from all import places at different ports, and they would have been struggling for the market, for the 200 million Nigerian market, and reducing prices in the process. It's competition that does that. We have seen it happen in telecoms and elsewhere. Why is the government not doing this? It's a simple thing. It won't even take the president 1 minute to say it. That are ordered that there should be no more licensing for importing petrol. Anybody can bring it in. That's number one. Number two, Nigeria already went through the process of selling 4 refineries. And President Obasanjo had actually sold these refineries. What President Tinubu needed to do from day one, immediately he made that speech at the Eagle Square on the 29th of May. Immediately he got back into Aso Villa, he would have constituted a team and say, go and carry the document of the sale of the refineries in 2007. Bring it. Look at them again in current realities and adjust the numbers and everything. Put up these refineries for sale. And as we're speaking today, the process to sell the refineries would have either been concluded or would have been in the process of conclusion, so that investors will bring their money, then get these refineries sorted. The refineries will solve the twin problem of fuel subsidy and exchange rate. Because let's not forget, every time we drive into a petrol station, we are buying petrol in Naira. And that Naira must be converted in dollars to go and import the petrol. And that is what is causing exchange rate. Is the biggest contributor to the exchange rate crisis. You know, so why is President Tinubu not taking these kind of steps so that we know that he's towing a different path from the presidents before him? But so far, President Tinubu is not doing anything different from the president before him. How can he expect different results?
Oh well, whether he's not doing anything before the president or whether the bottom line now is there's a headline I'll take you from now from one of the headlines in a paper that we shared this morning, I think the Punch newspaper, that said the president to unveil workers package October 1. And that makes me wonder, like I asked the analyst that was on the show this morning, what package will the president be unveiling if NLC is saying that they have not met since fuel subsidy was taken out. They have not been able to meet. So what package will the president be unveiling on October 1? Is it that the president has decided to give Nigerian workers whatever he feels is due unto them? Or how do you, please help me understand this, Nick, and then I'll come back to you, Chukwuma Okoro. But let's start with you, Nick, please.
You know, as my co-panelist, Chukwuma had already said, if the package that the president is going to offer on Independence Day on October 1 involves increasing the pay of workers and things like that, it will only contribute to the inflationary pressures. You see, inflation is when too much money is chasing too few goods. If you increase workers' income and the productive base of Nigeria has not increased, that means we used to produce 1,000 yams when workers were earning 100,000. And now, workers are earning 200,000, we are still producing 1,000 yams. The only thing that is going to happen is that the price of yam is going to go up. So, we have to wait to see what that package is. But I want to advise the president, and if he's watching us or his handlers are watching us, that he should be dealing with the fundamentals of the economy. We have an economy that is of low productive base. Nigeria's economy is weak, and the things that are causing Nigerian economy to be weak are there. Number one, electricity supply is short supply. When the president went to UAE are delivering 30,000 megawatts of electricity to about 10 million people. That is to tell you that they are delivering 3,000 megawatts of electricity to 1 million people. It is the same 3,000 megawatts of electricity that Nigeria is delivering to 200 million people. You know, without electricity, you can't increase the productive base of the country. The president himself identified monetary policy. Say, in his inaugural speech, the interest rate is too high. It cannot engender businesses to have access to cheap credit and boost production in Nigeria. But under his nose and watch, the central bank has already had an MPC meeting and they increase the interest rate. Insecurity is pervasive in the country, you know. So I was listening to the off the press where we're talking about Leah Sharibu. You have people who have been kidnapped and they are held hostage on Nigeria's territory. Yet we have a chief of defense staff and 3 service chiefs, DSS, DIA, MIA, DSS, all sorts of security agencies, and Nigerians are being held hostage. You know, the president just needs to sit back and do the homework. If you don't deal with these critical aspects, there's no way production is going to increase in Nigeria. So even if you increase the wages of workers, it's going to come to naught.
Okay.
Indeed. Now to you, Chukuma. I asked Nick this question before. I said, do you think the collaboration of the NLC and the TUC would yield better results than, you know, that of the NLC as a standalone? Because I mean, we've seen in previous times, you know, strike actions that never yielded any results. Do you think this would be, you know, what they need, the collaboration with the TUC to ensure that the government yields this time around?
Well, Joy, the fact of the matter is that I trust the NLC more than the TUC. You know why? Because the TUC is the creation of the government. And anytime TUC comes into the mix, they always come to douse tension between the NLC, between Nigerians and the government. It has happened several times. And I hadn't read the newspapers this morning when I told you that anything could happen between now and the 3rd October. And look at the kite the president is flying, that he's going to release a package on the 1st of October. And the package is more likely to be an increase in workers' salary, which the NLC is already championing without considering the knock-on effects on the economy already. So their collaboration, the only thing that can happen is for Nigerians as a people to ensure that this strike holds out for a very long time. But I'm afraid it won't happen. The NLC, the union is already politicized. You remember the first time they called for strike, shortly after the first subsidy was removed. The West and the North pulled out of the strike, that it was sponsored by the Labour Party. So who knows what will happen? And the last time, even the 2-day warning strike, was there strike in Lagos? It was skeletal. And let's break it down. Let's tell ourselves the honest truth. If any strike, for any strike to have full effect in Nigeria, it must start from Lagos. The moment you shut Lagos down, other parts of the country will start feeling it. But if it's skeletal in Lagos, what they will just do is to go to Abuja and dance Omale's so-so. After 2 or 3 days, Nigerians, prominent Nigerians will come in and say, okay, now let's give government some time to look at these things. The NLC has become the union, like I said the other time. During the military era, we had more vibrant union, more vibrant civil society than what we have now. The more our democracy, instead of strengthening our institutions, has actually weakened them. Nothing will come out of this strike, trust me. I'm saying it on national TV. Nothing is going to come out of this strike because it's going to be the usual ritual. Government will call them to the table, okay, give us more time. They will give them more time. By the time they recoup to do another strike, more pressure is coming even from the society itself to say, okay, why don't we give the government some time? If the West does not follow in this strike, my dear, count it out. Nothing is going to happen. So the collaboration of the TUC and NLC is just is a photo screen to look as if government is behind the whole thing. Government is behind it. It's not going to work. That's the truth of the matter. That's my opinion about it.
Well, Chukuma, you said this strike action would not yield any results. Do you think that is because of the inexperience of the leadership of the NLC as of now? Because we've seen in time past, we've seen the NLC bring the government of the day to their knees, but now it's seeming as though the government is taking the NLC for granted now. Do you think this is due to their inexperience, like I said?
Well, like I said, over time, we have had the vibrancy of the labor union and the civil society organizations, maybe because of the permissive nature of society and because of the psyche of Nigerians. We are, on TV, I'm saying it, we are very docile people. Anything goes for us. Anything, very docile people. If you go on strike for 1 week now, Nigerians will be the ones saying, NLC, I'm not gonna leave this thing now. I'll just allow this thing now. Okay, the government is trying. They will now use prominent Nigerians, influencers, to begin to influence the opinion of Nigerians to say, okay, please calm down. Let us. Do you know what happened when ASU went on strike? It was prominent Nigerians that put pressure on ASU to call off the strike. So both about the stand of the leadership and that the psyche of Nigerians, we don't, even ourselves, we don't take ourselves serious. Trust me, if the NLC goes on strike on the 3rd, they say it's indefinite. If they don't call it off by the 10th, what will I'll take my degree certificate. I'll give it to you. If they don't call off the strike by the 10th of October. Let me give you an instance. When I said that we are docile people, do you remember the Rosa Parks strike, the bus boycott in the US?
Okay, yes.
As far back as 1951. The Montgomery bus strike. Do you know that the black people were able to hold on to that boycott from September 1951 to December 1952? That is the strength of purpose, the strength of unity by people. We can't do that here. It can't happen because Nigerians are very easygoing people. We like Fela say, we're always suffering and smiling. So for us, anything goes. Anything goes. So both the NLC, the leadership, and the psyche of Nigerians who are never serious, who never go out for what they want, especially collectively. And the whole thing is being politicized now. If you look at it, people from the West see this thing as an attack from the other parts of the country. Oh, our son is president. Now people want to pull him down. That is it. That's it. That's the reality on ground. That's the way our politics has been structured. And it's affecting every other thing about us. Our activism, the labor union, the strike protest, or whatever. If we are lucky that the thing holds out in Lagos for a very long time, then other parts of the country will start keying it. But if Lagos doesn't take the lead, my dear, forget it.
All right then. All right. Thank you very, very much, Chukwuma Okoro, for that take there. But I'm going to ask. Let me ask Nick this question. Yes, Labour is talking about going on strike. Labour was talking about protests. Mobilizing people to come to the streets to protest, picketing offices, and all of that. Now we've had a narrative of hijacking of strikes, hijacking of protests. I beg your pardon. That has been a narrative that has played out, for some time now, where the police will tell you that, look, don't do this because they have gotten intelligence reports that some unscrupulous elements intend to hijack it. And then we see where those involved are protesting and fighting breaks out somewhere and tear gas is being fired, the police come into it, and protesters are dispersed. How do you think this manner in which the strike intends to hold, which is protesting, carrying placards, how do you think this will play out with the narrative of possible hijacking of the protest, which might, water down the entire effect at the end of the day? How do you think it will hold out with this, really? Nick, please.
First of all, The strike is in two parts, as you have accurately narrated. The first is that workers are not going to appear at work. So that is going to have its own impact. It's going to take its own negative toll on an already struggling economy and bring more hardships on people who are already suffering. So even if there are no protests and workers decide not to show up at work, and let it not be that even the oil industry workers don't show up for work, if there is a total shutdown of the oil industry, then it means Nigeria is actually shut down, because that is the main source of our bread and butter as we speak today. So that's one aspect. So that aspect is going to happen regardless. The other aspect is workers now coming out to engage in protest. And I don't buy the narrative by the police. For me, it is the police reporting themselves as incompetent, because the police must create the enabling environment for citizens to protest peacefully, because it's our constitutional right. Our right to free association, our right to protest is constitutional. And the Inspector General of Police must understand that he is serving the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He's not serving the President of Nigeria. He's not his Senior Special Assistant on Security. He is the Inspector General of Police of Nigeria. And he must take the necessary steps to prevent the protest from being hijacked. If he has evidence or intel that the protests are going to be hijacked, then he should deploy enough security to guarantee the safety of the protesters, instead of going to fire tear gas at the protesters, intimidating them and stopping them from engaging in a constitutional activity. So this message is direct to the Inspector General of Police and the other security agencies in Nigeria. We all are going to be happy if Nigeria is doing well. We all are going to suffer if it's not going to do well. So for the fact that they have a uniform on shouldn't make them think that they will not come and start fighting those who are fighting for the soul of Nigeria. So this is an advice to them. So that narrative, for me, I don't buy it. The Inspector General is only showing himself to be incompetent.
All right then.
Hello, Mrs. Can I come in briefly?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, because you see, what Nick has just said is instructive, but you shouldn't be unmindful of the fact that the government sometimes is the one that sponsors the anti-protests. You get the point? They are going to infiltrate the ranks of the protesters. Why? When they do that, they cause mayhem here and there. And they will be the one to call the police. Hey, move in. Why are you allowing Nigerians kill themselves? So it's all part of the government's ploy. It's all part of the government ploy to do that. So it's if it happens, I won't be surprised. And another thing the government will do is to allow you to wear yourself. Nick said the strike, the protest or the strike is going to put more on the economy. How can I put it now?
More pressure, yeah.
I'm not going to be damaged further. Okay. More pressure. So when the government notices that there is more pressure and that there is hunger in the land, they will just allow you to wear yourself out. People will now start appealing to NLC. Why don't you look for an exit route with the government so that this thing can come to an end, and Nigerians who live from hand to mouth on a daily, which is quite about 45% or more of Nigerians live on that basis. So if they don't go to market to buy plantain and roast, to buy yam and roast, to buy egg and chicken and sell, how are they going to feed? So within 1 week, the pressure is on Nigerians too, to put pressure on the NLC. So government knows all these things, so they will just allow you to wear yourself out before they now call you for renegotiation. I think the best thing the government can do for us as a people is to do things right. The thing is biting. It's everywhere. It's biting. Nigerians are collapsing on the streets of this country due to hardship.
All right then. Now let me stay with you now. Now we're talking about the palliatives to be put in place. Are we focusing on the wrong things? Or are we focusing on the right things? Palliatives, as the word says, it's a temporal measure. Subsidy has been removed. There are attendant problems. All right. We know that the refineries, putting it in place is one thing. What are the other things that should be put in place to secure the economy in a long-term basis, as against palliatives, which is a temporal measure?
I said it here before. The palliative was a wrong move.
Okay.
So when we finish eating the bags of rice that we got, what do? We run back to government to ask for rice again because the government removed fuel subsidy. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. There's a mismatch of ideas. Even what the NLC is asking for, I don't see what NLC is asking for. The few of the things they're asking for, I don't see how those things are going to relieve, the pressure on Nigerians because fuel was released, or fuel subsidy was removed. Look at, you are asking for rice they are giving us palliative when NLC should be talking about refineries. And for a point of correction to Nick, the refineries were actually sold by Obasanjo. Obasanjo sold like two of them, the Port Harcourt and Warri refinery. But Yar'Adua came and reversed them.
Okay.
You get the point. Yar'Adua came and reversed them. So the refineries were not actually sold. They are still in the hands of government. They are still in the hands of the NNPC. Nigeria has no business importing fuel. No business importing fuel. And it puts a drain on our foreign exchange.
Aside from
like
fuel,
Nick explained.
Now the question is, aside from fuel, of course, what other thing can we do to secure the economy that is not a palliative measure? Aside from, fixing the refineries. Now the government has said that the Port Harcourt refinery will work before December. Yes. So, and then there was a documentary that showed workers fixing things, welding things. So let's have faith that will work. Now, aside from that, what other measure?
What the government needs to do is to rejig, to re-engineer the economy. I was happy when I listened to Cardoso yesterday. He said they have though it's very modest, but it's going to help in the long run. That he has a target to grow the economy to 1 trillion. $1 trillion economy within the next 8 years. What it means is that GDP will get to 1 trillion. And when the GDP gets to 1 trillion, what it means is that there is more economic activity here in Nigeria. We need to earn more. We need to earn more foreign exchange. We need to export more. Do you know what they call the AGOA, African Growth Opportunities Act? It was rolled out in 2005. And there are about 186 commodities that America allowed Africans to bring into the US just to kickstart the African economy. Apart from that, we have the African Free Trade Agreement that was signed the other day. It's a measure to boost export, inter-African trade. So what is our strength? What advantages do we have? We have agriculture. Let's go to palm oil. If you're flying from Lagos to Port Harcourt, you cover about 25 minutes distance on air where there is just palm oil. You can imagine when you cover 25 minutes distance on air where there is just palm oil, and that is rhizome palm and other palm in Imo State and Rivers State. In Abia State, we have Abia palm too. Let's take the palm oil, for instance. If you revive that sector, it is going to add, it is going to bring, if we export, it is going to bring more foreign exchange into this country and reduce the demand on the forex because 89% of our foreign exchange is earned from oil. The other 11% is from other commodities. It doesn't help us. I've talked about oil. Cassava, if you look at cassava, Nigeria is the highest producer of cassava worldwide. So why are we not exporting it? Why are we not taking advantage of that track to earn more foreign exchange? If you talk about rice, do we need to import rice from Indonesia and Thailand when the whole of the north is arable and fertile for cultivation of rice? But people can't go to farm because of insecurity. What of onions? Can't we export onions? We cannot, because even our local consumption, we can't meet it. Why? Because people don't go to farm. What of beans? And you are giving people 2 billion naira to share to micro and small medium enterprises when there is no light. If they give you 50,000 naira, use 20,000 naira to buy fuel or diesel to run your business. Within 3 months, the business collapses. So we need to rejig the economy, cut down on our demand for foreign goods. We need to think Nigeria. We need to leave Nigeria and it.
All right.
Nigeria. If you go to a place like, if you don't want to drive made in India cars, Tata. If you don't want to drive Tata, then walk. If you don't want to wear Indian sari, then go naked. China did the same thing. Access for foreign goods, and everything is imported. It puts pressure on our forex reserve. And when it does that, what does it do? Our economy is weak and our currency is weak too. So rejigging the economy in the long term is what we need to do, apart from building refineries and ensuring that there is fuel everywhere.
All right, then. Thank you very much.
I've just mentioned 3 commodities.
Elaborate.
I've just mentioned 3 commodities.
There's a whole lot more that we can do, actually. It's obvious. It's obvious that there's a whole lot more that we can do. But, you know, the time on the program seems to be against us right now, so we cannot expatiate on everything as it is. So let's quickly get on to our second topic. And well, up next on VOP this morning, Naira has set a new record, falling to its lowest against the dollar in the parallel market. Now let's discuss this in just a moment. We'll be back.